Hello. Today we're going to have a play in the Zlin Shock Ultra short takeoff landing aircraft in Flight Simulator 2020. In the game it's about 7:30 in the morning, the sun's just coming up. We're at Squamish Airport, just down the valleys from Vancouver in Canada. So let's have a look around the aircraft. It's a very, very lightly built aircraft. Two people can fly in it, one behind the other, as you can see here. We zoom in and have a look. So we're going to go through the procedures of switching it on and have a look around. I've not actually done this before, so it's going to be a bit of a voyage of discovery for me too. So let's have a look around inside. It's very, very basic. You can see it's a wonderfully modelled aircraft. If we move the stick around, everything's mechanical. So there's you can see the actual cables moving when I do things. We can see if I activate the elevators, you can just see them moving behind us over there. You can see all these cables moving when we move the ailerons and the... Interesting. Okay, so throttle as well. Got throttle movement again. So the person in the back has the same controls, and it uses a kind of almost a pantograph type arrangement to replicate the same controls. Okay, let's have a look and see what we've got. So first things first, we would switch on the master battery switch first. And okay, those switches, that switch does work, so that gets us our power and avionics, which is great. To start the engine we will need the magnetos. We won't touch trim yet. We're not going to play with the radio, we're not going to play with air traffic control, not that there is anywhere in a tiny little airport in the middle of nowhere. What can we look here? We can turn the strobe light on maybe, so if there are other aircraft in the air they will see us. And let's see what happens. I don't think we'll need choke, so... Well, that was straightforward. Engine is running. Obviously the engine is then providing power for the steam gauges, so the artificial horizon is righting itself now. Okay, let's release the wheel brakes, and we're immediately rolling on the tarmac, so we'll start moving around. Let's have a look at the front. Just sitting up in my chair. We'll roll out onto the runway. Oh, there's a van on the runway. What's he doing here? Perhaps he brought me to the airport. Who knows? So let's pull out onto the runway. Way! Or should we wait for the van? I think he's waiting for us now. So I'm going to move the flaps. If I press F and then... Let's hope without backtracking on the runway we've got enough room to do this. So before we get moving, let's have a quick look. What happens when we... So the flaps... Oh, it's got slats on the front of the wings as well. So there's two positions for the flaps. Down is vastly down. Okay, so we'll go for the first flap setting. And we'll start rolling. Having to use quite a lot of rudder input there to offset the torque. And okay, so the flap has lifted us off on its own, so I'll just keep the nose down. I'm just looking at the speed, so we've got speed in kilometers an hour down here, which we can see there. So if I keep the nose fairly level and then just lift the flaps, and yeah, it's just a case of keeping the plane, the attitude of the plane correct. So then we can use trim, I guess. So if I come back to 50% throttle now, nose is dropping slightly, so trim it to just fly at 50% throttle, and that's fine. It's doing... We've got a vertical speed over here, we've got altitude here. Okay, let's turn around then and go and see where we came from. Do a gentle turn. The scenery up in Canada is wonderful. I guess this is British Columbia, isn't it? So sun's coming up over the hills over there, completely obliterating our view, but it looks kind of wonderful. Let's have a look from outside. So yeah, Flight Simulator does silhouette lighting very, very well. Let's go back inside. So we'll do a touch and go. So let's go and do it from the left side. Keeping an eye on the speed. This thing accelerates downhill very quickly. Okay. So we'll do a touch and go, and then we'll go off exploring for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and land, I guess. Oh, there's another aircraft right in front of us, in the valley. Interesting. Okay, so let's do a nice lazy turn. Just watching the speed. Put the flaps down. So I've put the flaps all the way down, and we can descend pretty steeply without gaining too much speed. Coming up to 50 kilometers an hour. So if we were to dive for the floor with the flaps straight down, because they're effectively like giant air brakes as well, yeah, we're not getting too fast. So then the speed will bleed off as we roll along. So it's got those giant rubber tires on it, so let's throttle. This is with the flaps fully down, so it's come off the ground instantly. So we'll keep the nose level, or thereabouts. Raise the flaps to the next level and keep the nose level. The temptation is to climb, but I think that would be the wrong thing to do with these kind of giant flaps on the wings. And flaps all the way up. And back to 50% throttle. So let's go and have an explore. I guess we could have a play with the flight model as well in Flight Simulator to see how realistic it is, and I know this is going to be awful. So I'm going to go full rudder left and right and see if we get any adverse yaw. So yeah, look, the wings are really not influencing as much as they should. That should kick the airplane over quite viciously. And it's not, it's just like you can just skid it crazily. I mean, okay, that's only moving at maybe 10 degrees either way, but it should still be throwing the wings around. Okay. So let's get some speed back up, and I won't have to trim it. So we just poodle around basically at 120 to 140 kilometers an hour. Let's trim it up slightly. There we go. Just looking at vertical speed. So we're going fairly level, 50% throttle. It has got this switch here, but it doesn't respect what you've done with... Well, let's check. So if I trim it... Oh, it does. So I'm trimming it by hand with my joystick, and it does reflect what's happening. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what this gauge shows, or whether it is even a gauge, because it doesn't seem to move. So although when you hold the mouse over it tells you what setting it's at, it doesn't actually reflect it on this light, which is a shame. Why have I got a caution light? Wonder why that is. What have I not done? It's obviously something I've forgotten. Is there something I haven't locked? Maybe? What does this lever do? Okay, so it's quite interesting, isn't it, to see everything moving around when you operate the aircraft. It's like when we... I guess we'd see that better from outside. It's a wonderful 3D model. Okay, shall we see where we're going? So let's fly along this river a little way. Should we fly actually along the river? Seeing as we can in an aircraft like this. Keep an eye on the speed, we're getting close to the airframe limit. Yeah, the scenery modelling in Flight Simulator starts to break down when you get too close to river beds. It's still pretty spectacular though. Should we sit up in the chair a little bit so we can see what we're doing? Skimming over some of these trees. I don't want to get too low for risk of hitting a tree with the wings. Oh, there's a building. Some sort of mill, I guess. Oh, there's a bridge. Should we see if we can fly under it? Oh, yes. Full throttle. Climb, 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 climb. Go back under it this way, and then we'll go back to our airport, I guess. Okay, let's fly home. That's enough daredevil antics for one day, I imagine. Okay, so back to 50% throttle, let the aeroplane settle. We'll straight line it back, we won't follow the river. So let's see if we go full throttle for a while and get some altitude. Wonder what sort of speed, if we look down in the cockpit a little bit. So if I put my head up and then tilt down, there we go. So I'm climbing at about 80 kilometers an hour. So we can see the airport over there, or airfield I should say. There's more lake up that way, some mountains. I don't know this part of the world very well at all, so it's all a bit of a voyage of discovery for me. So let's see what speed we're doing. So there's the airfield, there's this little village down here, or town. interesting scenery. Makes you wonder who lives in these remote towns. Must be quite a different way of life. Okay, so is that the aeroplane we saw earlier that's landed at the airport? Probably is. You'll have noticed I don't have the labels switched on for the other aircraft. I prefer it without it. Okay, let's trim the nose down a little bit. Yeah, I actually prefer flying without the labels because it's more realistic to the real world. So let's go for first level of flaps. Whoa, look at those kick in. Although I was doing 100 and something kilometers an hour, and flaps you shouldn't be using above 100 kilometers an hour, so whoops. At least it didn't damage it. So if we have a look outside, you can see these massive barn door flaps. We've got a big ratchet mechanism that you can operate with this lever. Okay, straighten our view up. Put on the second level of flaps. And we really have got barn doors hanging and slats on the front of the wings as well. Should we see if we can stall it down? Boing! It's an interesting aircraft, isn't it? Put the flaps back up and taxi our way in. Kind of difficult to see where you're going because you can't see over the nose no matter how hard you try, because it's got such a high rake angle when it's sat on its rear wheel. Okay, let's pull off the runway. I'll go and park up by the fuel supply. And there we go. Let's see if we can find the parking brake. I wonder where it is. So where do those levers lead? Is that it? No, that looks like that's just a guide, but it seems like we should be able to push it. And this is on the other side, of course. Is it that one that we have to operate? No. I have no idea then how we operate the parking brake. Interesting. Okay, anyway. There we are, we're on the ground. Next to the fuel supply. Somebody else has come in and landed over there. Excellent. So there you go, that's the Zlin Shock Ultra in Flight Sim 2020. And we are in British Columbia. I'll leave it there.